Music is not just about playing musical instruments. It gives you all sorts of life skills. You probably noticed tonight that our young violinists are actually practicing the coronavirus fist bump with these beautiful elbow arms that they did. You know that I'm pretty interested in music and its broad impact. And it actually turns out that music made by the Harmony Program students may actually keep us safe from viruses. Researchers at Wilkes University in Pennsylvania found that listening to a certain style of music actually increases the level of immunoglobulin A and boosts your immunity. Now, unfortunately, that style of music turned out to be smooth jazz. So, not just a piano player. All right, now you really appreciate, you never appreciated Kenny G, did you? So, okay, music probably does not cure coronavirus, maybe. But it's everywhere, bringing us joy, comfort, solace at the most important moments in our lives. If you think about it, are there any crucial life events that don't include music? Our mothers literally sing to us the moment we come out. We hear happy birthday, we hear religious prayers in our coming of age ceremonies, pomp and circumstance at our graduation, and Barry White at our, probably TMI right there. No kidding. So it brings us peace and joy throughout our life, and if we know how to make music, we bring that joy and peace and healing, possibly even literally, to others. And if we know how to make music, it brings us so much more. I'm curious, how many people here played an instrument as a child? Wow. Maybe do it the opposite way. Did anybody not play an instrument as a child? I mean, it's incredible. And how many people still play an instrument now? So about half. That's great. So you all know. Has anyone here met anybody important in their lives through music? So you probably know the story if you know me, but my amazing wife Jenny was sitting there stuffing envelopes in my trading room one day a while back, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw her, and I had something to talk about with her because she had an audition chart in front of her. It was obvious that she's an actor, and she was between auditions. So I asked her if she wanted to run her sides with me, and she said, sure, what are you talking about? And I had a piano, as I still do, in my office. If you've been to Harmony, you know that's the case. And the rest is history. So music is a lot more than healing, it's a lot more than just playing instruments. Now, making music has always gotten people together. If you think about the young lady 17,000 years ago who in the cave of Lascaux figured out that she could make a very realistic antelope hunt drawing, who did she go home with? Probably the guy who made the drum out of the antelope skin and sang a song about it. And this has been happening for a long time. It helps us make friends, meet our mates, and have lots of babies. And it works so well at doing this that cortical areas for music appreciation have evolved as part of the integral structure of the human brain. And now it starts to get really interesting because it means that music is literally built in. It's a part of us from birth. And this is probably the reason why kids who study instrumental music do better on every measure of academic achievement. So much better that when you convert it to an SAT score, kids who have instrumental music lessons end up improving their general intelligence by about 15 IQ points, 210 SAT points, which is about the difference between Harvard and Rutgers. That kind of difference also makes it... The question is in which direction? Interestingly, 15 IQ points also makes you more likely to 21% more likely to be alive at age 76 than the average person. Every quality of your life gets better. You don't just live longer, you earn more money, you have happier, longer lasting marriages, you're healthier, and you live a more productive life. You've also probably noticed that a lot of people who are good at math are also musical. I've had that comment a lot, even though I'm not that good at math, believe it or not. But I think it's actually the opposite. The causality arrow is backwards. It's that early music education makes students smarter, and they're better at math and everything else too. And I think most people think of it as the opposite. When it's music itself that's causing it. It's not a correlation, it's causality. No other type of training comes close to the benefit of early music education. Not coding, not basketball or soccer, not pottery, not ballet or taekwondo. These all work a little bit and are better than nothing. Even vocal music is not as good, according to the research. Giving kids early music education is the best thing we can give them to make them smarter. And the test score impact of music education also happens to be exactly the size of what people refer to as the achievement gap. Now, this is something our school's chancellor is trying very hard to close. We have the solution right here. Why don't we have universal music education? Well, somewhere in the world there is universal music education. That, of course, is China. My friend David Goldman, who's a China expert, pointed out that Chinese people who are already about 15 IQ points higher than the average of the world there are 45 million piano students and 40 million violin students in China, all getting smarter and smarter, and they're selecting their smartest people to be their leaders. And we're electing, well, I don't want to say dummies, but okay, we'll say it. Anyway, no problems. I swore I wouldn't do that. Okay, but why don't we have this? Oh, by the way, David said to me, the only solution that we have in America to keep up with the Chinese is universal music education. Why don't we have this? Why? Here's what I think is the reason. The arts got taken out of schools about 40 years ago. Now, most schools are run by administrators who have never even seen arts in the schools. And it's really hard to convince them that arts needs to come back into the schools when they've never even experienced the benefit of it. And this is something that we've experienced at the Harmony program. And once we even get them convinced that they need arts education, we then have to convince them that instrumental music is the species of art education that we need to implement, that they need to have. Now, you can talk all day about how wonderful it would be to have a school orchestra or band. In fact, next fall, we're going to have a great example of this. I don't know if you've ever realized that the musical, The Music Man, is literally about music education. It's like music education, the musical. And remember, we've got to have a boys band to save River City. So we have trouble with a capital T in New York City because I believe that administrators feel the following. If they want to have arts at all, they'd like to have a lot of arts. Native American dance, East Asian pottery, painting for social change, and maybe some music on the side. But none of these are as beneficial as instrumental music. And lately it's even harder because Western classical music, which is literally the base of every style that we experience pretty much, happens to be made by a lot of dead European males with names like Johann, Ludwig, and Wolfgang. It's not woke at all. So what do we do? I actually think the answer is to work backwards. Rather than offering 76 trombones and a big parade, or 40 amazing string players like we have tonight, jamming on Beethoven, bluegrass, and Beyonce. Sorry, Kay. We're going to offer something else. We're going to offer them magic beans. We're going to plant these amazing beans in your school, and your kids will do better on their tests. Math, science, reading, every single test score is going to go up. The kids will stay in school longer, they'll pay attention better, they'll do better in college, they'll live longer, they'll make more money. They'll have happier marriages. Sounds pretty good. Okay, so what are these beans going to cost me? What are you talking about? Don't worry about that. We'll see you at the winter concert. And yes, I will absolutely join you at your induction ceremony to district superintendent because your school had the biggest improvement in test scores in New York City. That's what will happen. We have to advocate, not for instrumental music, but for the benefits of music education, possibly even for the unique benefits that accrue to administrators who support music education and plant our magic beans, as in, hello, Madam Chancellor. Maybe we don't even mention that there are violins involved. Just talk about our brilliant educational and novel system, which of course is BEANS for short, that leads to massive academic improvement and better educational and life outcomes. We're not woke and we're not easy. Teaching music is hard. And I'd like to, if there are some of the teachers in the room, you're the people bringing our program to the kids, and I'd like to just say a special thank you to you for all the time. Learning music, of course, is even harder. And I think our little ones went home, but I think there's some kids still ready to play coming up, and I'd like to give the kids a hand. Chris Steely, who so here's one thing. Did you know that every violinist can play mandolin? So think about the word mandolin. Man, hand like manual, dolin, violin. So you take your violin, put it under your rest position, pick up a pick, and it literally is the same thing. And I've actually done this with some violinists. I'll give them a mandolin, like, you can play this. What are you talking about? Here, try. And in 5 minutes, they're doing it. So every one of these kids is a mandolin player in training. And if they're violists, they can play mandola, and if they are cellists, they can play mandocello. So there's a whole family. And so, I don't know if you ever thought about that. See? Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, Chris, did you start off on violin? No, yeah. So I started off on violin, which is why I can play mandolin as poorly as I do, but I can play violin. Anyway. This program doesn't happen without our staff, and they work in my office. I see them every day, and they are so hardworking, they're so competent and creative, and most of all, they care deeply about the kids that we serve. So please let's acknowledge the staff. And finally, Ann Fitzgibbon. When I met her, I was just stunned by her vision of an extremely high-quality training program based on what has been happening in Venezuela for decades. She had this idea that it could be brought into the New York City public schools and made modular and expandable, and that it could happen for hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands of kids. We would love to get in front of Carranza, the school chancellor, and say, we have a magic bean to change the world and make you the best school chancellor in terms of performance ever in history. 15 points is an enormous difference. And we can do that. We just have to get some sort of mandate to do so. And someone's going to do it someday, and then they'll see. But unfortunately, not yet. There's a lot of distractions, and there's a lot of money being spent on things that shouldn't be spent on instead of music education. Anne had this vision. Yeah, we can apply it. Anne had the vision of where harmony is today, and I've tried to help her get there as best I can. And the vision for the next 10 years is, we've heard this word a lot this week, and now I think everybody sees what the graphs look like, exponential versus linear growth. We want music to go viral in a really good way, not the bad viral, but the good viral. And Anne's ideas are really going to help us get there. You all get it. Our gardens really are filled with magic beanstalks. Thank you all for being here and supporting the Harmony program. Help us plant some more beans tonight. Support us. There's going to be ways of doing that later on. Let's teach Hugh Jackman a thing or two about instrumental music education and how to do it. And please do everything you can to help us and help this idea to get music education into the places that need it the most, which in my view is everywhere. Thank you very much.